I never had the conversation. My mom just gave me a box of condoms and said, "Here you go." Said, "You know what to do with those." And I was like, "You're right."
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Thank you.
The
That was it.
implication being, let's go to work.
Yeah, she said, "You'll figure it out."
I think for me, a lot of it was to figure it out on your own. There was a lot of explanation that was done between friends, not so much from my mom or my dad.
Because I don't remember ever having that conversation with my parents.
I think I remember my parents talking about getting a book one time. They're like, we'll get a book at the library. They talked about it.
But it never happened?
Never did.
I think when I was younger, I was about 9. My mom was taking psychology of human sexuality, and she had a big, thick book, and she just kind of left it out there on the table, and me and my friends would just get it and be like,
Where are the pictures?
Go right to the pictures.
like, all right, go to the pictures, and then after a while, it started making sense, and then start reading about it, and you're like, oh, all right, and then just go through, and then just kind of read this book for years of just explained everything, and then I just asked my mom questions here and there about stuff, and she'd give me the answers, and I don't know, I was just a very curious kid, so I think that helped a lot.
Yeah.
Having a big book that with pictures and you know, all the main words of everything that you've ever heard helped a lot. I think like hearing about the book, that just reminded me about all of that. So.
We had such thin walls at my house. I think I heard all of the sex before I knew what sex was.
Terrifying.
Yeah, that was
just terrifying.
And then when it finally came out, I was like, yeah, it all kind of made sense what was going on.
I think that's why my parents never fixed the ceiling fan in their bedroom.
Mask the lovemaking.
Exactly. I never had to ask that question because I'm like, oh, it's just the ceiling fan.
6 years old, though. I've got a 6-year-old son, and I can't imagine talking to him about sex.
I don't have any
No.
kids, but I'm really excited to do it. It's going to be so awkward and fun. It is. It's going to be just weird, and I like that. I like weird.
I'll check back with you in a few years.
I mean, you don't think I will? Because honestly, I think that it'll be just like I mean, you guys know more than me. Like, you guys are getting geared up to have that conversation, right? I'm not even close to it, but I just think it's going to be fun to sit down and be like, all right, there's the penis, here's the vagina, and this is going to go in here, and then you're going to pull out, and then you're going to put it back in, and then you pull it out, and you put it back in, and then you just go from there.
And then you just
I don't know,
go
just
from
a
there.
weird, fucked up conversation. I just think it's going to be fun. No,
My-
it's not
my
going to be fun.
6-year-old
No.
I think there will be some times when it is, and it's just a matter of, maybe with a lot of conversations, I think if you can get the upper hand on it, instead of them constantly coming to you and, being nervous, and if you can just let them know that it's okay to wonder.
Yeah.
And no matter how old you are, there's still going to be some things that you just don't know, or, because it takes 2 people to do it.
But those conversations are going to have to happen a lot sooner than they probably did
Absolutely.
when we were, kids, because kids are finding out about these things a lot sooner than I think maybe we did. I mean, if my parents were going to have a conversation with me, it probably would have. I was going to be 25, like, so this is what happens. This is how it's done. And then, or maybe they were just too afraid to have the conversation of the bees and the bees and the birds with me. There's a little fear.
Good way to put it.
Jack's teacher is really, really beautiful, and I said almost under my breath, God, she's hot. And he goes, maybe she's sick. You keep your brain right there.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the hardest part, I think, is trying to figure out what that age is, or when they're, do you wait till they ask?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my dad to say something to me about it. In 42 years, he hasn't said a word, but my mom, OBGYN, so we started out, I can remember her reading her work stuff, and so we knew every clinical word, every thing that was, the way that you would learn in a science class, was described to us, and as we got older, there was always just a bowl of rubber sitting on the table,
At your
anybody who
house?
yeah.
Bowl of rubbers.
Oh yeah. Anybody.
I'll be
was,
damned.
And my mom, her patients were most of my girlfriend's classmates. When I was a little bit younger, babysitters, neighbors. So every time we go to the office, you'd see a lot of people you knew. And
Was your mom ever like, stay away from Sally?
she would, and I tried to pick
Checked
up
her out last
cues,
week.
and she was like, my loyalty to my oath, supersedes my loyalty to you. Yeah, back to the original question. It was all for my mom, and I think it worked out well. It's just I have 2 half sisters, but they're so much older, so it's basically me and my brother. We're about the same age, and she just told us all, from the beginning, this is how it works, this is what can happen, and these are the consequences. And
How old were you?
probably 6 or 7 with some of the stuff, and not the real gory details, I guess. But from if we ever had a question, she always would answer it. There was never any hemming and hawing, and I think I got to go get the laundry, and she would just say, okay, you want to know? And most of the time it was good enough, with young kids, and you have kids, they barely want to know anything, and so you don't have to really get into it. But it's always been that way. And I can
6
tell
or
her to
7
this
years
day.
old?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I honestly can't wrap my head around fucking dicks and pussies at 6 or 7 years old, let alone barely today. Like if my parents told me that at 6 or 7, I'd be like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean?"
Yeah, and it wasn't so
Maybe
much
that's the best
that,
time.
she was like forcing it on us, but there were times when something would come up and be like, what is this? Or I heard this at school, and she'd say, oh, well, there are 5 more words for this. And like she just never wanted us to be the kids who didn't know. And
That's very responsible.
Yeah, and so it worked out. And she's like, you're going to hear just so many things from your friends, and so much of it's not going to be true. And as I got older, and especially into high school, the things that you would hear, and you just can't believe, that. So I wish that everybody else, would have had, 1 or 2 parents who could have told them, this can happen. I mean, I still remember I was telling somebody the other day a story that my mom told me. One of her patients said, well, I can't be pregnant. And she said, well, you certainly are, and here's the proof. And she said, but my boyfriend told me that you can't get pregnant on a Tuesday.
Is that true or
And
it's not true?
no.
Damn it.
I have no idea.
Cross that off.
I think she found out it was on a Monday.
I have no idea.
Yeah, or like, oh,
It was Monday, that's right.
It's
It was
Monday
11
because nobody has sex
was
on Monday because
11:59.
Mondays suck.
And so just things like that. You can't get pregnant if you're doing it in this position, and it's like, well, you most certainly can get pregnant at any time, any way, and so I was glad that at least I knew.
That sounds like the most responsible way and the best time to tell your kids. It sounds like your parents did a perfect job.